Hey guys, a lot of you have been waiting for me to make this video. I've seen a lot of comments. You guys requested that I talk about swing weight. So basically what swing weight is the maneuverability of a racket. And a lot of people think that you can reduce the swing weight of a racket, and you cannot. The only way you would be able to do so is if you took the head guard off. However, you can of course increase the swing weight of the racket by placing lead tape most efficiently right at the top of the racket. This will add the most swing weight, but you could also place it at the 3 and 9 o'clock areas of the frame. Now strings will also matter a lot when it comes to swing weight, and when you look at the measurements on the various tennis equipment websites, most of the time you're looking at strung swing weight. So obviously when the strings are in the racket, there's going to be a higher swing weight. What type of strings you're using matters as well. If you're using a thicker gauge, you're going to get more swing weight. If you're using a thinner gauge, you're going to get less swing weight. The string pattern also matters. If you're playing with a very tight, dense string pattern, you're going to have more swing weight because it's going to require more strings to fill the racket than a more open string pattern. Couple of misconceptions about swing weight. First of all, it's not measured in grams. There's a formula attached to it. It's a dynamic weight that depends on you actually swinging the racket. Swing weight also doesn't relate to the balance of a racket. So let me give you an example. Here we have my old Wilson Hyperhammer 5.2, which is a head heavy racket. So if I add weight to the very bottom of the grip and to the very tip of the racket, I'm not going to change the balance of the racket. So the racket is going to remain head heavy. However, the swing weight of the racket will change because I added weight to the very top of the racket at 12 o'clock, which means that the dynamic weight of the racket, when I start swinging it around, the fact that I have weight right here on top changes the swing weight and makes it higher. And when it comes to swing weight recommendations, this is going to be something that's going to be difficult for me because I don't know how you play. When we have higher swing weight, just picture yourself playing tennis with a hammer where all the weight is distributed to the very top of the hammer. If I start swinging this thing around, will I get more power if I swing the hammer with the same speed as my racket? Yes. The more swing weight you add to your racket, the more stability and power you will get. However, you lose maneuverability. So despite me being able to get a lot of power with the hammer, I'm going to lose a lot of maneuverability, and maneuverability is very important in the game of tennis. When I used to play competitively, I loved playing with longer rackets, and generally longer rackets have a higher swing weight. And I also played with the Hammer 5.2, as I already said, and these rackets were designed with a higher swing weight. These rackets were also made very light, and the idea was that these rackets could give players, especially at the recreational level, more power. And this racket right here has a relatively high swing weight, and it is incredibly powerful. I used to love it on my serve. I used to love it on my ground strokes. I didn't like it that much on my kick and my topspin shots. And here's the reason why. You have to understand how strokes work and relate them to swing weight. So let's take this hammer as an example. If I'm able to bring this hammer up and swing down like this, I'm going to get a tremendous amount of power. Why? Because when I approach the ball and go forward and down on the ball, the weight that's at the very top of the racket is going to help my serve. That's the primary reason why I like playing with higher swing weight rackets, because my game depends very heavily on the serve. Now, how about topspin? A lot of people associate a higher swing weight to more topspin, and this is actually true, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to get more topspin. Of course, someone like Rafael Nadal, who hits with a tremendous amount of spin, also plays with a racket with a very high swing weight. So how do we generate topspin? Well, it's with a vertical swing path. The racket goes up and across the ball like this. When we're talking about the forehand, and on the one hand and the two-handed backhand, it's the same thing. The racket goes up and across. So someone like Rafael Nadal, despite his racket being very heavy in swing weight, can execute a perfect vertical swing path, and he can also do it with a tremendous amount of acceleration. So if you gave Nadal a racket with less swing weight and he would execute his forehand, for example, with the same amount of swing speed, he would get a lot less topspin with less swing weight, and he of course would get more topspin with more swing weight. But remember, Swing weight is all about maneuverability. And the big question is, can you maneuver the racket in a vertical swing path going around your body like this when there is too much swing weight? If you can, then of course, play with as much swing weight as you can. In my experience, when we're talking about the recreational level, too much swing weight makes the racket less maneuverable, and some players are not able to accelerate the racket properly, and they don't get any topspin at all. They just can't get that racket up properly or with the right timing, and they get less topspin with a higher swing weight and not more. So when it comes to topspin, it's all about the correct technique. No specific racket, no specific weight, no specific swing weight will give you more topspin. You gotta make the topspin. So if you go to the Tennis Nerd channel, he gives you the exact swing weights of the professional players, and you'll be surprised that a lot of the professional players, especially the women, play with a relatively low swing weight, around 330. So my recommendation is that when we're talking about the recreational level, you want to keep your swing weight at 325 or below. Of course, there are going to be some recreational players who can play with a higher swing weight. The reason why I'm recommending 325 below is because, in my experience as a tennis coach of many years, a lot of people have a hard time executing the proper swing path. They end up slapping the ball, and all kinds of technical errors occur on the ground strokes. And a more maneuverable racket with less swing weight is easier when it comes to learning the proper technique. Now, is it plausible that as someone gets better in the game of tennis and goes up in levels, that the swing weight goes up? Yes, that's plausible, absolutely. If you take a look at juniors, they start playing with baby rackets and then slowly transition until they're eventually playing with adult rackets with a relatively high swing weight. So as you get better, you can increase your swing weight, but most importantly, you got to learn the proper technique, and it's done the easiest with a more maneuverable racket, which means that it has to be lower in the swing weight. Now, how about customizing rackets and adding lead tape and increasing the swing weight? Well, this is definitely something that you can experiment with, but again, you want to go by feel, and you have to think of whether the racket is still maneuverable despite it having more swing weight. Again, this will depend on the individual. It will also somewhat depend on your playing style. If you're someone with old school strokes, you can probably get away with more swing weight than someone who plays a more modern game with a lot of topspin and a vertical swing path. Some players, even with more vertical, modern strokes with a heavy amount of topspin, are able to handle more swing weight. But again, this depends highly on the individual. You have to go out there and test rackets. And when you are customizing your rackets and adding lead tape, don't just do it because the pros are doing it or to look cool. Step on the court and ask yourself, are my strokes getting worse? Am I getting less spin than before? Is it more cumbersome for me to swing the racket? If the answer to those questions is yes, you've probably added too much swing weight. If you feel like your racket doesn't have a lot of pop, you add a little bit of lead tape on top, you go out in the court and you feel like you have a little bit more pop, it's not influencing your strokes in a negative way, then you know you've found a weight specification and a swing weight that suits your game, and you simply stick with it.